I still remember that morning clearly. The moment my whole world fell apart. If someone had told me that just a few words could break a heart, I wouldn't have believed them. Not until I saw the man I loved walk out the door, leaving me behind with our newborn twins. I used to believe love could get through anything, that as long as we were together, nothing could break us. But I was wrong. Love isn't always enough. It can't always beat greed, ambition, or the lies of a woman who calls herself a mother. That day, I finally understood that my children and I had never really been a part of his world. I met Adam on a fall afternoon when the streets of Las Vegas were covered in golden leaves. I had just moved to the city after college, hoping to start my career as an interior designer. Adam Heaton, was the heir to a massive real estate company, Heaton & Co., with buildings from Jersey to Seattle.
But I didn't know any of that at the time.
We met by chance at a small cafe on the corner. To me, he was just a charming guy with a kind smile and bright blue eyes that sparkled when he looked at me. He didn't seem like someone carrying the weight of a powerful family name. We fell in love fast, like many young couples do, full of dreams and excitement. Adam wasn't like other rich men. He didn't show off, act cold, or make me feel small. He was warm, caring, and made me feel like I was the only one who mattered. Those first few months were the happiest time of my life. I loved him with everything I had. I just didn't know that love wouldn't be strong enough to carry the burden of his family name and everything that came with it. When I found out I was pregnant, Adam was full of joy. He hugged me tightly and promised to always protect me and our baby. But love and promises weren't enough to stand up to his mother, Patricia Heaton, a woman with sharp gray eyes and a cold heart. I remember the first time I met her. It was just a week after Adam learned I was pregnant. She invited us to a fancy party at the Heaton estate. The place was grand, with shining crystal chandeliers and walls covered in expensive paintings. From the moment I walked in, I felt out of place. The women, dressed in their expensive gowns, stared at me as if I didn't belong. The men, mostly business partners of the family, barely looked at me. The whole room was filled with power and wealth. Patricia sat in the center, holding a glass of red wine. Her gray eyes studied me closely. She didn't say anything rude at first. Instead, she smiled in a cold, fake way. But I could tell right away that she had already made up her mind. I wasn't good enough. "Adam tells me you're pregnant," she said with no emotion. How unexpected.
I didn't know what to say.
I held Adam's hand tightly and felt his body tense up. He tried to smile and act normal, but I could see the worry in his eyes. That night, Patricia didn't say anything else to me, but I knew it wasn't the end. And I was right. A few days later, Adam started to change. He grew quiet and distracted. He didn't sleep much and kept getting phone calls from his mother. When I asked him about it, he just said everything was fine and told me not to worry. But I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. Something was wrong. By the time I gave birth to our twins, I was sure of it. Adam was still at the hospital, smiling softly as he held our babies. But I could feel a wall between us. Something had changed, and it felt like he was slipping away. I couldn't reach him anymore. And then, on that heartbreaking morning, I finally got my answer. Adam walked into our small apartment. His eyes looked empty, and his shoulders were slumped like he was carrying the weight of the world. I was gently rocking our newborn twins when I saw him. I smiled, thinking he had come to start our life together as a family. But that smile quickly faded when I saw his face. "We need to talk," he said quietly. I placed the babies in their crib and turned to him, worried. "What's wrong, Adam?" He didn't answer right away. He swallowed hard and wouldn't meet my eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he finally said, his voice shaking. "I just can't." My heart dropped. "Can't do what?" I asked, afraid to hear the answer. He took a deep breath, like the words were too heavy to say. I have to leave." The room suddenly felt cold. I could feel my heart breaking, piece by piece. "Leave?" I whispered. "What do you mean, Adam?" He looked at me with sad eyes, but I could tell he had already made his decision. "My mother was right," he said, barely holding back tears. We don't belong in the same world.
I
I can't stay. Tears ran down my face before I could stop them. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. You're leaving me? Leaving your own children? Just because she told you to? Adam said nothing. In that moment, I realized the man I had loved was gone. Standing in front of me was someone else, someone too scared to fight for us, someone who let his mother control him. He was giving up his family for the comfort of his inheritance. He turned away and walked toward the door. I wanted to scream, to run after him, to beg him to stay. But I couldn't move. I'm sorry, he said. And then he left without looking back. The door slammed behind him. I was alone. Just me and my newborn twins, and a broken heart. I sat there staring at the closed door, still hoping he would come back and say it was all a mistake, that none of it was real. But he didn't come back. In that small apartment, it was just the three of us. The baby's too young to understand what had just happened. And me, holding the pieces of a love that was no longer enough. I was still holding back tears as I looked at my babies lying quietly in their crib. They were so small, so innocent. They had no idea their father had just walked away, leaving me to raise them alone. The first few days after Adam left were the hardest days of my life. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was hold my babies close and cry. At night, the apartment felt cold and empty. Their soft cries echoed in the room, mixing with my own quiet sobs. I was exhausted, both in my body and in my heart. My body still hurt from giving birth, but that pain was nothing compared to the pain of being left behind. I kept seeing Adam in my mind, standing there, his face full of guilt, but not enough to stay. He had chosen the easy way out. All his promises of love and forever had turned into empty words. During that time, I wasn't myself. I felt lost, drowning in sadness. I shut everyone out. My phone rang over and over, friends and people who cared, but I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. All I had left was a broken heart and two tiny babies who needed me. Then one night, as the rain tapped gently against the window, I realized something important. I didn't have the time to fall apart anymore. These two little lives needed me. If I didn't get up, who would care for them? Who would love them, feed them, and hold them when they cried? Adam had left them, but I never would. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and told myself I had to stand up. I had to try again. The next day, I started looking for a job. But life wasn't easy. Before I got pregnant, I worked at a small interior design firm in Jersey. I had to stop working as my due date got closer. After Adam left, I was ready to return, but they had already given my job to someone else. I tried to find a new job, but no one wanted to hire a single mother with newborn twins. I couldn't work late nights or keep the kind of flexible hours other workers could. I sent out many job applications, but every single one was rejected. Some hiring managers didn't even try to hide their reason. They said I wasn't a good fit just because I was a mother. People told me I wouldn't have enough time for work because I had two small children. Some were kinder in their words, saying they needed someone who could give their full attention to the job, something they thought I couldn't do. Every rejection felt like another failure, but I didn't give up. I couldn't. I had no choice but to keep trying. Some days, I felt hopeless. But every time I looked into the innocent eyes of my babies, I found a reason to keep going. I cut all extra spending and learned to live with as little as possible. I couldn't afford childcare, so I had to do everything myself. I was still having sleepless nights, but not because of sadness anymore. It was because the babies took turns waking up through the night. I got used to changing diapers with one hand while scrolling through job listings with the other. I started looking for work I could do from home. After weeks of trying, I finally got a freelance job with a small interior design company. The pay was low, but it was enough to cover the basics. Every night, after putting the twins to bed, I worked by the soft glow of my computer screen in a quiet, dark room. The next few months were a real challenge. I was a mother, a worker, and the only one providing for my family. There were days when I felt so tired I thought I couldn't go on. But I pushed through. I had already lost so much. I couldn't lose myself, too. Slowly, I noticed the pain wasn't as strong as before. It was still there, like a bruise that hadn't faded, but it didn't control me anymore. I wasn't the same broken woman crying alone in the corner. I was a mother of two, and I refused to let life defeat me. I didn't know what the future would bring, but I knew I had taken the first step. This time, I was in charge of my life. No one else would decide for me. I had grown used to long nights. After the twins finally fell into deep sleep, I would sit at my computer, the soft blue light casting shadows on my tired face. The freelance work wasn't enough, and I knew I couldn't keep going like this forever. I needed something more, something that was mine. That idea came to me one late afternoon, while I was folding clothes for my twins. I noticed that most baby clothes in stores all looked the same. There was nothing special about them. The ones that looked nice were way too expensive, and the cheaper ones didn't feel good or last long. I thought, why not make baby clothes that are both cute and comfortable? I wasn't a fashion designer, but I always liked making things. When I was a child, my mom taught me how to sew little dresses for my dolls. She's no longer here, but I still remembered everything she taught me. So I decided to give it a try. I borrowed an old sewing machine from my neighbor downstairs and started small. I made soft onesies, stretchy leggings, and simple dresses for baby girls. At first, I only made them for my twins. But when I shared photos online, a few friends started asking where they could buy them. That's when I realized I might have something special. I didn't have much money to invest, but I was determined. Every extra dollar I earned went toward buying fabric and sewing supplies. I taught myself how to sew better, how to design nicer clothes, and how to start a small business online. It was harder than I expected. I listed my clothes online, but no one was buying. I reached out to mom and baby bloggers, but no one replied. Once I got an order, but the person canceled at the last minute. It felt like failure after failure, and I started to wonder if I was just wasting my time. Then one night, as I watched my babies sleeping peacefully in the clothes I made, I reminded myself why I started. I had come too far to give up. So, I changed my approach. I took better photos of my clothes, made a simple website, and started a blog where I shared my story, how I was a single mom building something from nothing. I joined parenting groups on social media, shared my journey, and slowly introduced my clothes to other moms. Little by little, orders started to come in. My first customer was a young mom in Portland. She bought a newborn outfit for her baby girl. When I got the payment, I burst into tears, not because of the money, but because it proved I wasn't wasting my time. I wasn't invisible. Then came a second order. Then a third. Soon, I began receiving kind messages from moms who loved how soft and comfy the clothes were. Some even sent me pictures of their babies wearing my designs, their little faces full of joy. I named my brand Little Blessings because that's what my twins were to me. They gave me the strength to keep going. The next few months were still tough, but now I had hope. I worked day and night. I took care of my children, sewed clothes, packed orders, and managed my website. My small apartment had turned into a tiny sewing studio, with fabric piled up everywhere and threads scattered across the floor. Each morning, I woke up before my babies to reply to customer emails. In the afternoon, while they napped, I cut fabric and sewed. At night, when the apartment was quiet, I stayed up late learning about marketing, advertising, and how to grow my brand. I was tired all the time, but I felt more alive than I ever had before. Then something happened that changed everything. One of my posts went viral on social media. A popular mom on Instagram shared how much she loved Little Blessings. She praised the soft fabric and simple, beautiful designs. Overnight, my inbox was full of messages, and I was flooded with orders. I couldn't believe it. I even had to call a friend to help me pack all the boxes because I couldn't keep up. Soon after, I found a small local workshop to help make my best-selling designs. In just 4 months, Little Blessings went from a small online shop to a known name in kids' fashion. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a future for myself and for my children. For the first time in years, I felt proud. One night, while folding clothes to ship, I got an email that made my hands shake. A big mom and baby store in Las Vegas wanted to work with me. They wanted to sell Little Blessings in their stores. I set my phone down, my heart full. I looked at my sleeping children and felt so thankful. I had lost so much, but in the middle of all that pain, I had found myself again. I never thought I would get this far. I had started as a woman left alone in a small apartment with 2 newborns. Now, I was running a successful children's clothing brand. Little Blessings was no longer just a small online store. It had grown into a trusted name among moms, featured in articles about women in business, and sold in big stores. Looking back, it still feels like a dream, one I used to think was impossible. But the best part wasn't the success or the money. The best part was finding myself again. I was no longer the woman crying behind a closed door as the man she loved walked away. I had stood up. I had built a life. I had built something I could be proud of, something that was mine and mine alone. Every morning, I wake up in my bigger apartment and watch my 2 children laugh and run around. In those moments, I know I'm on the right path. I don't worry anymore about how to afford milk or count the last few coins in my wallet late at night. Now, I can give my children a safe and comfortable life. I can think about the future without fear. But more than anything, the most important thing I found is peace. I no longer feel angry at Adam. At first, I didn't think I could ever forgive him. He left me at my lowest point, choosing wealth and power over his own family. But over time, I realized that holding on to that anger only kept me stuck in the past. Adam no longer had a place in my life, and he no longer had power over my future. One day, while reviewing my work schedule, I got a text from an unknown number. "Manda, it's Adam. Can we meet?" I stared at the message, feeling a mix of emotions. It had been years since I'd heard from him. After he left, Adam disappeared from our lives completely. I didn't know where he went or how he had been living. And honestly, it didn't matter anymore. I set the phone down and didn't reply. Later that day, I sat in my small home office, looking over new designs for my next clothing collection. My thoughts drifted back to the past, but this time, it didn't hurt. I remembered the day Adam walked out of that tiny apartment. I remembered how crushed I had felt. But I also remembered everything I did after that, how I stood back up and built something out of nothing. I was no longer that woman. I was stronger now, more confident, and I didn't need anyone else to make me feel whole. The days that followed were full. I had an interview with a big magazine about my journey as a business owner. I had a meeting with a new partner to help grow my brand. And, as always, I had plenty of orders to fill. Every day was a step forward on the path I had chosen for myself. Then one Tuesday morning, I saw Adam again. One day, I took my children to the park. As I sat on a bench watching them laugh and run around, I suddenly felt someone looking at me. When I turned, I saw Adam standing just a few steps away. He looked nothing like the man I once knew. The confidence and pride he used to carry were gone. He looked tired, older, and his eyes were full of sadness. He took a few steps closer, but I didn't move. I didn't stand up or show any emotion. When he finally stood in front of me, I just looked up and waited. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me," Adam said, his voice unsure. I stayed quiet for a moment, then asked, "Then why are you here?" He glanced at the kids, then looked back at me. "I saw you in the papers. I saw what you've achieved. And I realized I was wrong." I wasn't surprised. I had expected something like this. "You realize that a little too late?" I said calmly. Adam gave a sad smile. "I know." He looked down, his hands tight at his sides. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because I want anything from you, not because I hope you'll forgive me, but because I truly regret what I did." I gave him a small nod. "Are you done?" He hesitated. I don't think he expected that response. But I looked straight at him, not with anger, not with sadness, just honesty. "Adam, I've come a long way to get to where I am today. And none of it is because of you. You're not part of this journey anymore." Then I stood up and walked toward my children. I didn't look back. I didn't care if he was still standing there. For the first time in years, I felt free. Adam was once a part of my story, but not the main one. That place belonged to me now. And I had won, not against him, but against everything that had once broken me. I took my children's hands and walked forward. No looking back. No regrets. Meanwhile, Adam sat alone in the huge Heaton estate. The silence around him was heavy. Since leaving us, he had gotten everything his mother promised: a powerful job, lots of money, respect, and a seat among the wealthy. But none of it filled the emptiness inside him. The fancy parties, the meetings, the trips, they all faded into the background. When the spotlight was off and the applause stopped, Adam was left with nothing but silence. He had everything money could buy, but no one who truly cared. No one who loved him without conditions. I used to be that woman, scared, lost, and unsure. But then one day, everything changed. Adam was sitting in his office when he suddenly heard my voice coming from the large TV on the wall. He looked up quickly. I was being interviewed on a morning talk show, sitting across from a well-known host. "Your story is truly inspiring to so many women," the host said with a warm smile. "From being a single mother left behind to building a successful children's clothing brand, can you share a little about your journey?" I smiled gently. My eyes were calm, full of strength and confidence, a version of me Adam had never seen before. "At first, I didn't think I could do it," I said. "But I realized if I didn't stand up for myself, no one else would. I had 2 children who needed me, and I couldn't let the past keep holding me down." Photos of me and my children filled the screen. We were laughing, playing in the park, wearing clothes I had made myself. The host went on, "Your brand, Little Blessings, has made such a big impact in the children's fashion world. What's the most important lesson you've learned along the way?" I nodded, smiling again. The biggest lesson was learning to believe in myself. I'm no longer the woman I used to be. I'm not afraid anymore. I don't rely on anyone. I created my own happiness. Adam felt his chest tighten. He couldn't take his eyes off the screen. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. I had changed completely. I wasn't the fragile woman he had left behind. I wasn't just getting by. I was growing, shining, and full of life. The final shot before the show ended was of me holding my 2 children, all 3 of us smiling brightly. Adam turned off the TV, but the images stayed in his mind. And for the first time he truly saw it, he had been wrong. Deeply, painfully wrong. For years, he had told himself that leaving me was the right choice. But now, seeing me happy without him, he finally understood. He hadn't just walked away from a relationship, he had lost something priceless. He couldn't bear the thought that I had really moved on, built a full life without him. Without thinking, he grabbed his car keys and left the estate. He didn't know what he would say, or if I'd even speak to him, but he couldn't live with the regret anymore. By the time he reached my apartment, the sky was dark. Everything had changed since the day he left. Back then, I lived in a tiny, crowded space. But now I lived in a spacious, beautiful home. Modern but warm, filled with love and peace. Adam stood at the door, his heart beating fast. He didn't know how I would react, but he knew he had to try. He rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, I opened the door. I was still me, but I wasn't the same woman he had walked away from. I was stronger, more confident. There was no sadness in my eyes when I looked at him. Adam opened his mouth, but couldn't find the words. I crossed my arms and said calmly, "What are you doing here?" He swallowed hard. I saw you on TV." I said nothing, just waited. He let out a shaky breath. "I was wrong, Jennifer. I was wrong from the beginning. I should never have left you. I let my mother control my life, and because of that, I lost everything." I tilted my head slightly, my face unreadable. "And now you realize that?" Adam nodded, his eyes full of regret. "I know it's too late. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just need you to know you were the only person I ever truly loved." I looked at him for a long time before replying, my voice soft but clear. "Adam, I don't need that." He blinked. "What?" I smiled, but it wasn't a soft or hopeful smile. It was a smile of freedom. "I don't need to know whether you loved me or not. I've moved on. I've built a life I'm proud of, and you're not part of it anymore." Adam stood still, finally understanding the truth. I went on, "You chose your path a long time ago, and I chose mine. I'm happy now, and I don't want the past coming back to shake what I've built." Adam lowered his head. His eyes were heavy with sorrow. He knew there was nothing he could do to change what had already been done. I took a deep breath and said gently, "Take care of yourself, Adam." Then I closed the door. Adam stood there for a long time, staring at the door that had just shut in his face. A soft breeze passed by, carrying with it the weight of everything he had lost. He had once had everything and let it go, and now he knew it was truly gone. He stayed there, frozen, wanting to knock again, to beg for a second chance. But deep down, he knew there was no point. I was no longer the woman who had cried and begged him to stay. That woman was gone. I had moved on. I had built a life without Adam, and now he finally had to face the truth. He had lost everything. He turned away, his steps slow and heavy as he walked out of the apartment complex. A cold wind slipped through his coat, but he didn't feel it. His mind was blank except for the sound of my voice repeating in his head, "You are no longer a part of my life." Those words hit him hard, but he knew there was no one to blame but himself. When Adam returned to the Heaton estate, the giant mansion stood tall against the dark sky. Warm golden lights shone from the tall windows. It still looked grand, still a symbol of power and success, the very things he had chosen over his own family. But tonight, all he could see was how cold and lifeless it felt. He stepped into the large entry hall. The smell of polished wood and his mother's fancy perfume hung in the air. Everything looked perfect, the expensive rugs, the paintings, the carefully arranged furniture. But there was no warmth in any of it. Patricia Heaton sat in her usual chair, slowly swirling a glass of red wine. When she saw Adam walk in, she didn't seem surprised. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice as cold as always. Adam didn't answer right away. He took off his coat and laid it on a chair. Then he walked to the bar and poured himself a glass of whiskey. "I went to see Jennifer," he said at last, his voice rough. The room went quiet. Patricia put down her glass and let out a long sigh. "I suppose you've finally figured out you no longer belong in her life." Adam turned to look at her, his face dark with anger. "You knew."
She smirked.
"Did you really think the woman you left behind would wait for you forever?" Her words made Adam clench the glass tighter in his hand. "You talk like this wasn't your fault," he said. Patricia let out a small laugh, but there was no joy in it. "My fault? I simply showed you the path you were born to take. You're a Heaton heir, not some regular man with a simple, forgettable family. I gave you everything." Adam laughed bitterly. "Everything? You really think I have everything?" He slammed the glass down on the table, spilling the whiskey. "Yes, I have money. I have a career. I have power. But do you know what else I have? Emptiness. Every morning, I wake up in this house and go to an office full of people who don't see me. They only see the name. They respect Heaton, not me. I'm surrounded by people, but I've never felt more alone." Patricia said nothing. Her face showed no emotion as she stared at her son. She watched her son, but said nothing. Adam continued, his voice shaking. "Jennifer moved on," he said. "She made something of her life without me. Our children grew up without me. And what do I have?" He let out a bitter laugh. "This house.
You.
And everything you call everything." Patricia tilted her head and crossed her arms. "So, what do you want, Adam? Do you expect me to say sorry for helping you secure your future?" Adam gave a dry laugh, full of pain.
"No, Mother."
"You don't say sorry. You never feel sorry for anything." He let out a sharp breath and shook his head. "But I do." He looked straight at her. His once bright blue eyes were now tired and dull. "I regret listening to you. I regret losing Jennifer. I regret missing the birth of my children. But most of all, I regret letting you control my life for so many years." Patricia's eyes narrowed. For the first time, she looked unsettled by her son's words. Adam took a deep breath, as if gathering all his strength. "I'm leaving." Patricia sat up quickly. "What did you just say?" Adam looked around the mansion one last time. He stared at the paintings, the fancy furniture, the expensive decorations he once thought he needed. But now, it all felt empty. "I'm leaving," he said again, slow and clear. I can't live like this anymore. I don't know where I'll go, and I don't know what's next. But I can't stay here. Patricia stood, her usual calm voice cracking. You're being foolish, Adam. Do you really think you can walk away from everything? If you leave, you lose your inheritance. You lose everything I built for you. Adam smiled, but it wasn't the happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally had enough. You're right, he said. If I walk out that door, I lose everything. But the truth is, I already lost the things that really mattered a long time ago. He turned, picked up his coat, and walked out of the mansion. No one followed him. No one tried to stop him. Just one man, walking away from the world he once thought he couldn't live without. And for the first time in years, Adam felt truly free. Morning sunlight poured through the windows, warming the rooms of my bright, peaceful home. The sound of my children's laughter filled the air, mixing with the smell of fresh coffee. I sat at my desk, my fingers moving across the keyboard as I reviewed new contracts for Little Blessings, the brand I built from nothing. I had come a long way, from a single mother, heartbroken and alone, to the strong, successful woman I had become. I had become a successful business owner. My story had been featured in magazines that celebrated women and new businesses. Little Blessings was no longer just a small online shop selling baby clothes. It had grown into a well-known brand across the country. Our products were now in major stores all over the USA. I had even opened 2 flagship shops, one in Las Vegas and one in Seattle, where mothers came to find stylish and comfortable clothes for their children. I was busier than ever, but I didn't feel tired. Everything I had now, I had built with my own 2 hands. No one gave it to me. I didn't depend on anyone. And most importantly, I no longer needed Adam's approval. I didn't even know right away that Adam had left the Heaton estate. Later, I heard he gave up his inheritance, cut ties with his mother, and started his life over with nothing. But by then, it didn't matter to me. I didn't feel angry toward him anymore. I didn't wonder what he was doing or how he felt. He was a part of my past, and that past no longer had any power over me. That afternoon, I took my children to the park. They ran across the green grass, laughing and chasing each other. I sat on a bench, sipping my coffee, enjoying the peace I had worked so hard to find. A woman sat down beside me and gave me a warm smile. "You're Jennifer, right?" she asked, her eyes bright. "The founder of Little Blessings?" I smiled and nodded. "Oh my God, I'm such a big fan," she said excitedly. "I've followed your journey for so long. Your story is so inspiring. You went through so much and still built a beautiful life. That gives hope to so many of us." Her words caught me off guard, but they filled my heart with warmth. "I just did what I had to do," I said softly. "I refuse to let my past decide my future." The woman smiled and nodded. "Thank you for sharing your story. You've given strength to so many people." As she walked away, I sat quietly, feeling deeply moved. I had never imagined that my story could inspire others. But now I saw that what I had built wasn't just about supporting my children or earning a living. It had become something more. I had become a symbol of strength, a woman who rose above her pain and created her own happiness. That evening, I sat on the couch with my 2 children snuggled in my arms. I told them a bedtime story. Not about kings or castles, but about a woman who faced hard times and stood up for herself, who built a new life full of love and joy. "Did she end up happy, Mommy?" my little girl asked, her big eyes looking up at me. I smiled, holding them close. "Yes," I said. "She did." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. "She made her own happiness." As I turned off the lights and walked out of the room, I stopped for a moment at the door. I looked at my children, sleeping peacefully. They were all I needed. I didn't need a man to complete me. I didn't need anyone to rescue me. I had rescued myself. My life, my happiness, my future. I had built it all on my own. And for the first time in years, I truly felt in control of my own path. Life doesn't always turn out the way we plan, but how we face hard times shapes who we become. Jennifer was left behind. She hit rock bottom, but she didn't stay there. She chose to rebuild her life. She didn't let her past decide her future. She didn't wait for someone to come save her. And she didn't need approval from the man who walked away. Her success, her peace, and her freedom were all earned by her own strength. This story isn't about getting back at someone. It's not about regret. It's about growth, courage, and taking back control. It's a reminder of how powerful a woman can be, even in the hardest times. What do you think of Jennifer's journey? Do you agree with the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more real stories about strength